He sits in the car for 4 minutes before he goes inside. Engine off, lights off, hands still on the wheel. Not because he doesn't want to see them. He needs 4 minutes where nobody needs anything from him. If you asked how he's doing, he'd say, fine. That is the only word the world has ever allowed. The real answer is longer and messier, and he has never said it out loud. Not to her, not to his mates, not even to himself in any way that actually counts. Today we're going to say it for him. There is a sentence that keeps appearing when fathers are finally given permission to be honest, and it will gut you when you hear it. There is a study that proved the strong, silent dad is physically altering his child's nervous system in real time. And there is a reason the parent who seems completely fine is often the one standing closest to the edge. Stay with me on this one, especially if you're a father. A psychologist in London ran a series of anonymous interviews with fathers of children under 5. No names, no judgment, no audience. Just a microphone and a single question. What would you say about fatherhood if nobody was listening? The most common answer was not about sleep deprivation. It was not about money or the loss of free time. It was this: I feel like a visitor in my own family. Let that sit with you for a moment. These weren't absent fathers. They weren't checked out or disengaged. These were men doing bedtime every night, doing the nursery run every morning, loading the dishwasher at 10 p.m. while she finally sat down for the first time all day, showing up in every measurable way. And still, something inside them felt like they were standing just outside a bond they could not quite reach. There is a concept in developmental psychology called parental identity reorganization. It describes the psychological shift that happens when a person becomes a parent, the way your entire sense of self has to restructure around this new role. Researchers have studied this process in mothers for decades. The word matrescence was coined to capture it. Best-selling books have been written about it. Entire online communities have formed around it. The equivalent process in fathers has barely been named, let alone studied, let alone supported in any meaningful way. Dr. Daniel Singley, a clinical psychologist who specialises in men's perinatal mental health, calls it the invisible transition. A man becomes a father and the world asks him exactly one question. How is mum doing? Nobody asks how he is doing, and after enough months of that silence, he stops expecting the question at all. So he does what men have been trained to do since they were small boys. He absorbs it. He stays steady. He provides. And the distance between what he actually feels and what he allows anyone to see grows a little wider every single week. That distance carries a cost, and he is not the only person who ends up paying for it. Now this is where the research turns genuinely uncomfortable. In 2010, a landmark meta-analysis published in the Journal of the American Medical Association reviewed 43 studies across 16 countries, covering more than 28,000 participants. It found that roughly 1 in 10 fathers experience clinical depression during the perinatal period. 1 in 10. Not a fringe finding buried in a niche journal. A consistent, replicated pattern across cultures, income levels, and family structures. That is millions of men, worldwide, sitting inside the same silence and calling it strength. But the number that should stop you is not that one. It is this one. Fathers who are depressed but do not speak about it produce chronically elevated cortisol. Cortisol is a primary stress hormone, and researchers at the University of Cambridge found that young children physiologically mirror their father's cortisol rhythms. Not his words, not his behaviour, Not what he says or doesn't say at the dinner table. His biology. The toddler sitting in his lap while he scrolls his phone and tells everyone he's fine is absorbing his father's stress through proximity alone. The strong, silent father is not shielding his family from his pain. His body is broadcasting it directly into his child's developing nervous system, and nobody ever told him that was happening. Nobody told any of us that was happening. And here is the second quiet disaster unfolding in most homes. It is called maternal gatekeeping. It is a well-documented phenomenon in family psychology where one parent, usually the mother, unconsciously controls the other parent's access to caregiving. She refolds the towel he already folded. She takes the crying baby because she can settle them faster. She corrects the nappy, the bottle angle, the precise order of the bedtime routine. Not because she's trying to be controlling, but because her own anxiety is running so hot that any deviation from the system she has built feels genuinely dangerous. She is not trying to be cruel. She is trying to survive the weight of feeling responsible for everything. But what he hears is something completely different. What he hears, every time she reaches across to adjust the way he's holding their child, is a single message repeated on a loop. You are not good enough at this. Step back. I will handle the things that actually matter. Picture this. 9:30 on a Tuesday night. Kids are finally asleep. She is sitting on the sofa with her eyes closed, not resting, recovering. He walks in from the kitchen where he's been scrubbing dried pasta off a pot for the last 10 minutes, and he stands in the doorway for a moment, trying to find the words for something he has never said out loud. He almost says it. He almost says, "I feel like I'm failing at this and I don't know who to tell." But then he looks at her. She hasn't slept more than 4 consecutive hours in 11 months. She has pureed sweet potato on her sleeve and 47 unread work emails glowing on her phone. And his brain runs the same quiet calculation it runs every single night. She has it worse than I do. So my thing does not count. That arithmetic is happening in millions of homes right now, and it is quietly hollowing out relationships from the inside. Dr. John Gottman's research on couples after children found that 67% experience a significant drop in relationship satisfaction within the first 3 years of a baby arriving. But the revealing part is not the number itself. It is the pattern underneath it. Both parents are struggling, but they are struggling with completely different things, and neither one knows how to say it without making the other feel attacked or dismissed. She is thinking, I do everything and he doesn't see any of it. He is thinking, every time I try to help I get corrected, so eventually I stopped offering. She needs him to notice without being asked. He needs her to let him try without being told he's doing it the wrong way. And because neither of them ever says this out loud, because the real conversation feels too dangerous, they end up arguing about who forgot to buy milk instead. Researchers call this the demand-withdraw pattern. One partner raises a concern. The other partner shuts down. Not because he doesn't care, but because his nervous system has learned that engaging leads to conflict and silence feels like the least dangerous option. So he goes quiet. And she reads his quiet as confirmation that she is alone in this. And the gap between them stretches a little further. Withdrawal is not safe. Withdrawal is slow erosion. It is the mechanism that turns. We're just going through a rough patch into 2 people raising children in the same house, sleeping in the same bed, and feeling utterly alone. And somewhere underneath all that quiet, he knows exactly what is happening. He just doesn't have the language for it, because nobody ever gave him the words. There is a question that shows up in nearly every anonymous survey of new fathers. Researchers phrase it differently each time, but the core is always the same. Do you feel like the father you expected to be? The most common answer is no. Not because they are bad at fathering, but because the version of fatherhood they imagined, the dad coaching the weekend football team, the father-daughter dance, the "I am so proud of you" moment at graduation, none of that looks anything like what fatherhood actually feels like at 2 a.m. with a screaming infant and a partner who hasn't looked at you with warmth in months. If you take only one thing from this video, let it be this. The father who looks like he is handling everything is performing. He is doing the only thing his conditioning ever taught him to do. Hold it together. Do not burden anyone. Be useful. Earn your place. Be the rock. And the cost of being the rock is that nobody ever stops to check whether it is cracking underneath the surface. He is not asking for sympathy. He is not claiming his experience is harder than hers. He knows it is not a competition. But if you could hear the unedited version, the thing he says to himself in the car with the engine off and the lights off and his hands still on the wheel, it would probably sound something like this. I love my kids more than I ever knew I could love anything, and I have never felt more alone in my entire life. Those two sentences are not a contradiction. They are the lived reality of modern fatherhood for millions of men who have no script for saying it, no community that normalises it, and no cultural permission to feel it without someone immediately telling them they should just be grateful. This is not a video about fixing fathers. Fathers are not broken. This is about what it costs when one parent is drowning and the entire world has decided he must be fine because he's not crying about it. The research answers this clearly. When fathers are given genuine space to speak about what they feel, when their emotional experience is treated as real and relevant rather than secondary to hers, 3 measurable things happen. Their depression scores drop. Their partner's satisfaction with the relationship increases. And their children, the same children who are mirroring that cortisol, show significant reductions in stress reactivity. Letting him feel it does not weaken the family. It is one of the most protective things a household can do for every single person living inside it. So if you are a father watching this right now, someone who sits in the car for 4 minutes before walking inside because you needed a moment where you didn't have to be anything for anyone, hear this clearly. You are allowed to not be fine. You are allowed to say it out loud. And saying so is not a failure of strength. It is the beginning of the thing your family actually needs from you, which was never your silence. It was always your honesty. And if you are the one who loves him, the one who has been so deep in your own survival that you haven't noticed how quiet he has become, know this. His silence is not apathy. It is not laziness or absence. It is, almost always, a man trying to shield you from having to carry one more thing. He doesn't need you to fix it. He just needs you to ask the question nobody else has thought to ask. If this is the first video of ours you've found, think about subscribing. We talk about the stuff that nobody else in the parenting space will say out loud. And if you know a father who needs to hear this, send it to him. He won't go looking for it on his own.